Welcome everyone to episode 71 of Raw Sport. My name is Ahmed Al Houli, and we are back with a huge show. The man himself, Mr. Rick Glaser, joins me on the show. Rick, how are you, buddy? How you feeling?
A little under the weather tonight. I'm in LA, a little under the weather, caught a head cold, but rip roaring, ready to go for one solid half hour and let's fire away.
Absolutely, mate. Rick, we're actually both in the famous city of Los Angeles. Unfortunately, you've come down with some sort of head cold, but
Yep.
we haven't been able to catch up yet, but we will. Um, Massive show ahead. There was a huge card last Friday night in Dallas, Texas, a card that many controversies came from, many opinions. Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul, many people were disappointed. How did you take the fight, my friend?
I I didn't even watch, to be honest with you, but I've watched it since. I didn't watch live. It was what it was. It's a shot old Mike Tyson stumbling over himself and a guy who just stayed away and faked his way. Both faked their way through the fight basically. Um, I just I think Jake Paul could have finished him along the way. Jake Paul said it himself. Never tried to embarrass him and finish him off, but he could have. Tyson has nothing left. I mean, just stumbling around, no legs at all.
He's 58 years old. Father time is undefeated, as they say.
Yep.
Um, 65. It was reported that 65 million people tuned in to watch the fight on Netflix. Does this open up a whole new world for the boxing world and for Netflix?
If Netflix wants to go in the real boxing business of real fights, it does. If we're going to get a freak show once a year, it doesn't. So that's the basic story of it.
There was many reports that this was a test case for the upcoming NFL games that are going to appear on Netflix. What are your thoughts? Did you hear anything of the sorts?
I didn't hear anything. I'm not, I really wasn't paying that much attention. I'm not into gimmick boxing, and that's just a gimmick. And I'm old school diet. I was more excited about the card Saturday from Riyadh coming up than I was watching that
We'll
stuff.
get there. We'll definitely get there. 50 million people, according to reports, tuned in to watch Amanda Serrano versus Katie Taylor, by which, in many accounts, they said it was a very exciting fight. Is this the turning of the leaf for women's boxing?
I don't think so. Women's boxing is women's boxing. It is what it is. It just happened to be underneath, um, K, Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. I mean, let's face it. I mean, if you put that as a headliner, nobody would have been too excited.
Um, there was an encounter after the fight between Eddie Hearn and MVP's Nakisa Bidarian. What's the story there? Why is there so much beef between the two?
I guess Eddie Hearn was being disrespected all week long by the gentleman you mentioned just now. That's Jake Paul's partner, and Eddie didn't. Eddie's been pissed off about it, from what I understand. But Eddie's ego is so big. If it's not about him, he gets pissed off. So maybe those guys didn't do anything wrong. It's just Eddie's ego coming to the forefront, like everything does. Eddie's just that way. Eddie's Eddie.
We had Artur Beterbiev call out Jake Paul.
But we know that's not happening.
Where does it leave Jake Paul, Rick? I mean, if you got
He's got to find another gimmick fight. 8-9 months from now. That's all. Simple.
but why
You know,
are these boxing world champions calling him out?
because they know Jake Paul can't fight. You can see it. He's a novice.
Interesting. Um, Golden Boy has their first fight night in Riyadh alongside Latino night. Massive launch in Riyadh for Oscar De La Hoya and the crew. Um, what does this relationship mean for Golden Boy? What does that event mean for Golden Boy?
Well, to put it mildly, it was a great. I thought it was an excellent night of boxing. Zurdo Ramirez winning. Um, the cruiserweight, winning the unification about the WBA portion of it. I'm sorry, the WBO portion of it too now. And it was a great night of boxing. I mean, it was something that it was free to the public if you had the zone. It wasn't pay per view, and it was a really five. It was six fights, but the first one wasn't a Golden Boy fight. It was a local guy that they put on. What a six rounder, but there was five really good fights. Four of them were excellent. One of them went the distance. It wasn't too exciting, but it was good. It was, I don't know, Barbosa beating Jose Ramirez, but Oscar Collazo was great. He won a unification bout with the longtime champion from Thailand, undefeated longtime champ. Was it? It was his 14th title defense, and he finally lost. And Oscar Collazo is the 105-pound version of Bam Rodriguez.
Yeah, absolutely. We will get into the individual fights. But from a business perspective, Rick, what does hosting such a big event in Riyadh for Golden Boy mean? Golden
Well,
Boy's always been looked at this the smaller of the big four. They've turned the leaf. Many American promoters haven't been able to do business in Riyadh, and as we know, let's be quite blunt here. The Saudis have very deep pockets, and if you're on their team, you got a lot of good going for you.
yeah, that's for sure. Well, Oscar has a really good relationship with Turkey Al Sheikh. He just bought the Ring magazine from Oscar. That went smooth. And Oscar's a great guy. Let me tell you, I've been doing business with Golden Boy since November of 2022, and they're wonderful people to do business with. They're men of their words. I mean, when I say you don't need a contract, the fighters always need contracts for the state, but I don't need to have a contract with them. I just send them a little note. This is and sum it up, and I get paid. I mean, it's that simple. They're quality people. They're men of their words. Both Oscar and the president, Eric Gomez, the COO, Robert Gasparian. They're just quality people. When I was at their show, and in October of 2023, the next day I collapsed in the at the hotel. Nothing to do with the boxing part. I just literally collapsed. I had taken the COVID booster shot, and it made my blood pressure drop. Well, make a long story short, I was hospitalized, and Eric Gomez, Oscar, Robert Gaspari were literally calling me every day. If you need anything, you need us. We're here for you. Don't be afraid. Don't afraid to ask for anything. And that was words coming from Oscar to Eric, to not only me, but telling Eric Gomez and Robert Gaspari the same thing. And they honestly, they're caring people. They want to see fighters do well. They do business in a business-like manner. I have no complaints about Golden Boy. They're aces.
Very, very kind of them. From a business perspective, does that mean now that we're going to see Golden Boy go to the level they were when they were under Richard Schaefer? They had all the biggest fighters in the world.
I
That's
don't
where we
know.
want to see them.
I
That's
don't know if Oscar wants to return Golden Boy to that level. In other words, where you're doing all those massive events. I think Oscar likes the role that he plays in boxing, where he's a little smaller than those other guys, but every show is quality that they put on, and every show makes sense. The fights make sense, and I think Oscar would rather be a high quality third place than a skitsy first place. I think Oscar's one of those type of guys. That's just my opinion, and I think that's a compliment to Oscar. To be honest with you.
yeah, absolutely. So, because many people now, unfortunately, they sort of gauge the promoters based on their fighters and who they have with them. The Golden Boy's got some huge stars. We totally get that. But where we're seeing them now is that we're seeing they're more on the development side. And the reason why I'm going into this because Golden Boy had some real glory days. They had the biggest fighters in the world, and that's what people remember of Golden Boy as their glory days. But as you said, if they're comfortable, they're financially viable, they're doing well, doing what they're doing. It's a formula that works, and they're not at risk of running out of business like PBC and others.
Correct. Oscar is a lot smarter than other people give him credit for. I've been around him. I've known what he said. He's very, very intelligent when it comes to boxing, the business and the sport. And I have nothing but great credit to Oscar and Eric Gomez, the president. Just they know how to do business, and everything they do makes sense, and that's always important.
Absolutely. We'll keep going. Let's get into the actual fight night. We discussed Gilberto Ramirez in our last podcast, and we said he's like that Mexican star that was meant to be, but never was. Never made it to be an actual star. He's known in the boxing world, but he had the potential to be like a national star in Mexico, like, a real big-time fighter in Mexico, but he never made it. On the weekend, he unified the Cruiserweight World Championship, adding the WBO belt to his WBA title. Unfortunately, the Cruiserweight division can be overlooked at times in terms of interest and popularity. Where does that set him now in terms of the landscape, in terms of the Mexican World Championships? Will we see him now go to that next level of stardom, or does he still need time?
I don't think it has a definitive answer. I think it's going to make people more aware of him, but I don't think he's ever going to be that mega star like a Chavez or a Canelo. He's just not that type of fighter. He's not as exciting as those guys, and he's just not. Canelo's a rarity. These kind of guys are rarities. Ramirez is an excellent champion, an excellent fighter, but his popularity will be just where it is.
There you go. Will we see a fight between him and Opetaia next?
I don't know about next, but I think down the road we will. Yep.
Why not next? What's stopping it?
Well, I don't have that answer. It may be next, but I don't have that answer.
Interesting. There was another big fight on the night as well. Arnold Barboza defeated Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez had his time in the boxing world. He seems to be on the latter end of his career now. Will Barboza get a title shot next year? He jumped on Twitter and he called out Ryan Garcia. What do you think will happen next?
I think he'll end up fighting Ryan Garcia. To be honest with you,
he will fight him?
It's an easy fight to make.
Yeah, same promotion, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'll sell out. It'll sell Staples Center 20,000 people. Easy.
From my understanding, he's 31 years old, and he's probably one of the only fighters at that age that hasn't had a title shot. Why is that?
I can't answer why not, but I will tell you that he's been moved well. You don't get to be 31 or 32-0 without being moved well. He's a good fighter. He's not a great fighter. He's a very good fighter, but he's not a great fighter. I think that, to be perfectly frank, I think that he was moved slow, but I think he was moved slow intentionally.
Okay.
And I think he's matured into a real fighter. And I think him and Ryan Garcia would be a great fight for next April when Ryan comes back.
Can you beat Ryan?
I don't know about that. Ryan's a very good fighter. Don't know. I don't think so, but I think that's what makes it intriguing. I'm not sure. If I knew one or the other, would be so intriguing, would it?
No, absolutely not. No. We'll move on. William Zepeda got the win against Tevin Farmer, but he got dropped. Where does that leave Zepeda? What is next for him?
Supposedly Shakur Stevenson next February 22nd. We'll see. Hopefully, yes. I think you'll see a different Shakur Stevenson. I'm sorry, a different William Zepeda against Shakur than you saw Farmer. Farmer runs around the ring more and moves around and is a little sharper of a puncher. And I think that Shakur throws one punch at a time. I think it's a different type of fight.
I was surprised to actually see him fight Tevin because I haven't heard Tevin's name in a long time, so it was quite the shock.
Well, Tevin Farmer just lost a controversial decision over here to Raymond Opetaia, who was undefeated. So it was, he's been fighting right along. He took some years off, but he's been back for about 2 years now.
Oscar Duarte calls out Devin Haney after his impressive victory over Batir Akhmedov. How likely is that to happen? How do you assess his performance?
I thought his performance was excellent, and because he was so excellent because he fought a really hard-nosed, good left-handed fighter. I don't think he's going to get Devin Haney. I just don't see that happening.
Speaking of Devin Haney, where's he at, in your opinion, after that fight? Can he recover? That was a real damaging fight for Devin Haney.
We'll see. We'll know a lot after the first fight back. We'll see.
Do you have any thoughts based off what you've seen previously?
I'd hate to say because I like to see him come back full strength, but you can't take very few people could take that kind of beating and come back and be 100% again.
Wow. Yeah, there you go. Overall, a pretty awesome card by Golden Boy in Riyadh. What was your outlook on the whole card? I mean, was it a success?
Excellent. Oh yeah, it was definitely successful. You had 5 really good fights, and nobody called up Oscar to say, "Hey, come over and bring us 5 bad fights." So it was very good. I was count me as entertained.
Absolutely. Question for you: we saw Netflix come out with their numbers very, very shortly after.
Sure.
One thing that's not very transparent in boxing is TV numbers, streaming numbers, viewer numbers. Do we know why?
Because they don't release them.
Why is that? Like, why?
I don't know. I've never figured that out. Doesn't make any sense to me.
When there's pay-per-views, we always find out figures somehow.
The reason why we find out the figures is because the fighters are paid off of it.
Okay.
When it's something like that, the other night, they're not getting paid off that.
Interesting, because every other sport gives us figures except boxing.
I don't know. I don't know why they're being so secretive.
Really,
a great question. A great question.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think it just puts the sport in this level of like mystery, and it puts a dark cloud over it. It's almost like they're too embarrassed to share their stats when you compare to the rest of the industry. I don't know what it is, because every other sport does that, and it reflects well with advertisers, with everyone. So it's very, very interesting.
Yep.
Well, that brings us pretty much to the end of my segment. What I want to do is sort of pick your brain on basically what I want to start asking you is, every week after a big weekend of fights, is there a fighter that stood out to you more than the others? And really,
Oscar Collazo.
Why?
Because he's just so talented. He's a 105-pound version of Bam Rodriguez. I mean, he's a great fighter. He's amazingly great fighter. I've always been impressed with him, but I was even more impressed because who he beat the other night.
Do you want to tell us more, just so fans know?
Well, he beat a Thai fighter who'd been champ for 8.5 years. Had 13 world title fights that he won every one of them, and He was the king of the 105-pound division, and this guy literally mopped the floor with him. Collazo literally not mopped the floor with him. It was one sided. He was down 3 times. I didn't see him even losing a round, and he just dog walked him. I mean, it was old school shit. It was an old school beatdown, and that's I thought he'd win, but I never realized it would be in such dominant fashion.
Do you think if he was at a heavier weight division, more would have been made of it by the media?
Oh, 1,000%. Just like Bam Rodriguez is another one. The only guy below 125 pounds, 126 pounds, below featherweight, that gets that kind of recognition, gets huge recognition is a Nui, and now Junto Nakatani's getting it, Bam's getting it. Now this guy's going to get it. So this guy's already on 5 title defenses. This Oscar Collazo.
So he's going to put the 105 division on the map finally.
Well, I'm not going to say he's going to put 105 on the top because he'll go to 108 pretty soon, and he'll dominate 108, and then maybe he'll go to 112. But I can see him being a 3-division weight class world champion. Who's going to fight him in unification bouts after beating this guy the other night? I don't think anybody's going to be too anxious to fight him. He might have to move up.
Why are the lower weights so overlooked in our sport?
Well, because you come from a country of bigger people, Australia. I come from America, country of bigger people. Then there's Britain. They have bigger people. A lot of countries have smaller people. The Philippines, most of the Asian countries, okay, and some of the Spanish countries, but mostly the Asian countries, and that's where those weight classes are biggest. Thailand, Indonesia, Japan. Those are the countries that they're the biggest. That's just the way it is.
Well, there you go. I'm going to take you in a different direction now. We've seen the UFC on Saturday night break another record in terms of attendance and paper and gate revenue. Why are we not seeing this in boxing? What are we not doing that they are?
We're not putting the best fights together. As a general rule, we've got too many shows where we're not putting the best fights together, and the promoters have diluted the product.
If we know the problem, if we have a problem, and
but in boxing's defense, they just did 95,000 people for Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois. So that's my counter to you.
But do we know the gate revenues and where
no? But you can't go by gate revenues.
Okay.
You can't, and I know bottom line you can when you're judging in an event, but 95,000 people paid to get in. Period.
Why I'm bringing these talking points up is because the common fan hears these stats by the UFC and says, "Wow, boxing's dead," right? But so that's why we're trying to clear up.
No, boxing's not dead because if you put a big fight on in Vegas, if you put a big fight on at the Staples Center, Madison Square Garden, it sells. Ryan Garcia and Haney sold it, and that was only at the Barclays Center. They would have done a lot more people at Madison Square Garden.
So we are our worst enemy.
Correct.
Well, there you go. All right, that pretty much brings me to the end of the show. I want to thank you, Rick. I know you're feeling very, very unwell, and you still fought and came on. Thank you very much, and we wish you a very speedy recovery.
Thanks.
From me, that's all. Rick, any last words?
Thanks for having me, and I look forward to next Monday, like I do every Monday with you. You ask great questions, and you're a guy that makes sense.
Thank you, Rick. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you all next week, Monday night, once again with the man himself, Mr. Rick Glaser. Take care, everyone. Goodbye. We wish you all the best. See you later.